Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian B.
Months of really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian B.
Months of really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian B.
Months of really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian.
It's a really, really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian.
It's a really, really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian.
It's a really, really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian B.
It's a really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian B.
It's a really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian B.
It's a really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian League.
Months of really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian League.
Months of really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all our partners. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to iNYALA.
My well wishes are for iNYALA to achieve great success and to fuel Malaysia with beautiful installations, interesting educational value and meaningful interaction.
iNYALA 2019 is organized by Hello Media, powered by Tenaga Nasional Perhatian League.
Months of really hard work on these people's, on the organizers' part.
And iNYALA 2019 has come to an end.
Hi. How's everyone? Good? So welcome to iNYALA 2022 second workshops. So today we actually has a workshop. So before that, let me begin with a quick recap. Okay. Quick recap. Is everything good now? All right. So before I begin, let me do a quick recap about what we have left off like since last week. Yeah. So here is the open call recap. Yeah. So reminder again. So we have a submission deadline on 16 October, and the proposal is about a new media art proposal on digital cubes. Yep. So here is our key theme. Our key theme is SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals. There are about 17 of it. And the exhibition date is from 26th of November until 25th of December. Exhibition venue is Fahrenheit 88, Bukit Bintang, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And the eligibility is this competition is actually open for all the undergraduates and postgraduate students who pursue a degree and master program in art and design. All right. So it's not only limited to individuals, and group submissions are accepted as well. Participants may submit multiple entry submissions, but only one entry will be qualified to final. Right. So this is actually the artwork requirement. Okay. The artwork must incorporate one of the 17 SDGs. Okay. And to make the key message of the selected SDG relevant for public awareness, each artwork has to be produced and displayed based on the canvas of a LED display cube of 5 faces. So they are front, back, left, right, and top. And the artwork produced should incorporate visual and generative art based on the data from the selected SDG. It means that you can choose one of the data from the SDG. And next is the submitted artwork should be in the video format of MP4 in the resolution of 1080 pixels times 1080 pixels. So for this, right, actually we have prepared a template that you can actually download to map on to try on the visuals, okay, within time frame of 36 seconds. And all artwork submitted must be original and complete within the last 3 years and should resonate deeply with the selected SDG. All right, so there are some questions about where do we get the data for this, and this is actually what mainly you can refer to. That is a document called Malaysia Voluntary National Review, VNR 2021. And from there, you can actually also looking for some external source, which is from DOSM, SDG Tracker, UNESCO Tracker, SDSN, and SDGs for Malaysian states. So far for Malaysia, right, there are so many goals, right? Actually, Malaysians have achieved 1 goal out of the 17 goals, and you can actually find out from the Sustainable Development Reports here as well. So the goal is until like 2030, but actually Malaysian has actually done 1 goal. So this is the event timeline. So for the workshops, so we are at the second workshop, which is 23rd September today, and the open call still continue, and the open call submission deadline will be on 16, and the finalist announcement will be on 21st of October. For final artwork submission will be on 18th of November, and the showcase date will be from 26th of November this year until 25th of December, Christmas this year. Yeah. And this is the awards that we recently just announced, which is including Best SDG Awareness, Best Creativity, Best New Media Art, and Best Visual. All right, so please submit your artwork proposal by 16th of October 2022. Yeah, and late submission will not be entertained after past 12 AM. Yeah. Okay, so here is our workshop today. So let me do a brief introductions. So today we actually, last week we talking about introduction on how we understand about how to get the data from SDG, but this week we mainly talking about how we're going to generate art from the data that we collected, because data is basically everywhere, but we know that data tells something, but always when you're looking at graph and Excel sheet, it doesn't really excite the public. So data visualization is actually a term that we created digital art out of it, and then we transform the very complicated information into something that you can have a understand about it through the visuals and through the artistic approach. So today we have 3 speakers, including Casey, Crystal, and Foong. So let me introduce Casey. Are you there? Yep. Hi, Casey. You good?
Hi, hello. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So brief introduction about Casey. Casey is actually a coder by profession and a maker at heart. So he actually runs a space called FabU in Sunway, Malaysia. And he used to be lecturers, and actually we are from the same university. Yeah. And we worked together quite a few times for some fabrication works. And yeah. So Casey, are you ready with your slide? So I pass over to you.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to share my tab. So hello everyone, I'm Casey. So I'm going to just share a few of my past works which I think is relevant with data, but a lot of data that I work with, sometimes they are not just Excel sheet, or they are not just graph numbers. Most of the data that I work with, sometimes they are visual data. So today, there are a few things that I did. I would like to share how I actually approach the data and how I actually work around, or I would say how we can actually process the data so that we can at the end generate something, or generate a work or artwork that we want, or that we want. Okay. So if you look into it, data can be, as we mentioned, data can be more than just numbers or graph and so on. So data is basically everywhere. So if we look at this simple diagram, like let's say data is the input. Okay, so data can be visual data, audio data, tactile, haptic, smell, taste, time, and space. And then it depends on how we capture the data. So we could maybe capture through code by crawling website and so on, or we can capture data by just archive things manually, document things manually. So there are a lot of ways of capturing data, right? So after we capture the data, then we will go through a process. So we will actually process the data. So after the processing, then we will somehow display the data. So the display format can be a lot of formats. So it can be visual, audio, tactile, haptic, smell, taste. In this case, I think for this open call, so I believe the output that most people that are going to work into will be visual data, right? So, but for today, yeah. So for today, right, I will be sharing on the process. Okay, so I will be sharing a few data sets that I have and what is the output. So most of the things that I will share first are mostly visual data and coming out with visual output, right? So, okay, yeah, so this is a few processing approach that this is not everything, but this is some of them. Like you can try the image processing. Personally, I use a lot of image processing, and then some we can actually process the audio. We can even analyze the sound data that we get, and then sometimes we can process the tactile. We can even provide force feedback to those data or to the audience as well. And then lastly is the biofeedback. Okay, so I think the first is that the first that I want to share is that I actually curious with the Chinese character. So I somehow Google and I found an Excel sheet which is on the left. So this Excel sheet, it has 5,000 characters, which obviously is not all the characters, right? It's just like 5,000 characters, 5,000 Chinese characters. So I was thinking, what if I train this data in machine learning? So what kind of characters will appear? So in my mind, I have certain visual output that I want. So you can see on the left, right? You can see on the left, these texts are in a very formal or official font. So I want the font to be something like calligraphy font. So I look for a calligraphy font, and then I actually get all the Excel data. I use Unity a lot. So I get all the Excel data and I stream into Unity. And then with Unity, I actually read the words one by one and by changing the font. So when I change the font into calligraphy font, I actually screenshot automatically through my code as well. So from there, you can see from the left side, right, I can generate the font in, I can generate the character in images with certain calligraphy font that I want. But from here, I then put all these 5,000 characters into machine learning, and I start to train them, and then this is the output. So the output might not present anything, it's just that I like how things can be very unexpected. So the whole process is something that I enjoy when I was creating, when I was playing and deal with visual data, right? You can try to, like if you can read Chinese word, you can see there are those strokes that you might be familiar with, but at the end of the day, it somehow doesn't represent any characters that you know, right? Okay, the next one that I play with is, I always like this sort of very retro Chinese poster, right? So I also go online and also crawl for all this visual data. So same thing from this visual data, I take all this data set, I put into training as well. So once it trains, I then generate into something visual, which is like this. Right, this is most of the works I did it during, I think, last year, I guess. Last year when we are locked down at home, when I have a lot of abundance of time, and I start to collect a lot of visual data and I start to play with them, right? And then the next one is, okay, so this is also one thing that I just want to explore. So during the lockdown and so on, FabView, we actually created a lot of virtual gallery. So I then start to think that what if I take the 360 panorama render of those virtual gallery and I put into machine learning and train them. So what kind of virtual space will be created? So you can see those data. This is just some of them that I take out from my folder. So you can see all these images, they're actually a 360 images. So if those of you who are familiar with 360 images, this is how they look like. But if you put into your skybox and so on, so they are sort of like a cube map as well. So with this, then I try to work with it. So I actually come out with something very random, but I like this as well, although it doesn't really represent anything, but I like how those output can be very unexpected. Okay. So basically it generates a space that just keep on morphing around.
Yeah.
So, okay, right, let's go for the next one. Okay, so this is also another data that I actually managed to find. So they are all Chinese ink painting. Same thing, I put it, I train the data, visual data, and then I generate visuals as well. So sometimes the output, most of the output that I generate, there are also output that I don't like, so that's why I don't show here. I actually do a lot of machine learning, which they call this gun. Okay, I do a lot of gun generations. There are output that I don't like, so I didn't put it here, but those that I show here, I like them. Sometimes not just the visual that they provide, sometimes I like simply because of the colors that is being generated. So like for example, for this, once I have this, I like the brown, the white, the grayscales and so on. I actually use it to further process the output, and then I make like those real-time particles, for example, stuff like this. So these particles, right, you can see the colors are actually all come from this visual data that I generated. So although
yeah, you prefer something that you like, and then you give it more similar data, so it's more towards your liking, or how you let the machine learning knows that it's actually what is your favorite is like. I mean, you have a preference, or you give them more similar artwork that you like.
Okay, this is actually a very good question. I will talk about it later. So if it depends on what is your objective and your purpose at first. If let's say I have something that I like and I keep on feeding the machine the visual that I like, right? So in a way that is data bias. So I will talk about data bias later on.
Yep.
So I think what is the objective that you want to do? I think if you just want to have certain visuals, I think if you are a bit, you have your own preferences, I think which is fine. But in certain cases, I think data bias will actually cause a lot of issues as well. So this one I will put it at the last. Like
Okay.
for this, I like the colors. That's one, and then afterwards, we also take like a lot of microscopic images, and we I sort of get a series of data generations from here. Like so there are actually 5 series here. So I just make like a summary of visuals. So this is the visuals that generates based on the 5 series, right? So from here, out of these 5, there are 2 of them that I like. Actually 3 of them. Like for example, the third one and the fourth one, I actually like the color. So from the color itself, I use it as a source for me to actually create something else. So like for example, stuff like this. Right, and then also from this color, same thing. So from the third and the fourth, I also created a globe. This is an interactive globe. It has sounds, and you can interact with the MIDI controller. But right now it's just a G file, so there's no sound over here. Okay, and then also like from here, the second visual data that I generate, I also further process it with shaders and so on. It then comes out with an input like this.
How is the parameter is like is the movement is something that expected when you generate this?
It depends what kind of data I feed and also how many that I feed them. I tried before, if I just like those that I show here, I actually feed like a lot. Some is 100, some is up to thousands. I was out of curious, I just feed 2 images. Okay, so I feed 2 images and I keep on generate it, right, for like very long hours. At the end, it somehow just looked like that 2 images, very close to that 2 images.
Because your sample size is too small, right?
Yeah, correct. So afterwards, I also want to test things out further. Then I start to sort of create our own data. So I actually I get photographer friends and a dancer, and I capture a lot of shots of her, and then we start to do the training in the machine learning as well. So trying to see what kind of output that we can create. So this is like a shoulder shot, and then also we try with the full body shot, and the output is something I would say very interesting as well. So this is the data set. I think both we have about close to 300s of photos. It's still considered small, but then based on what I was expected to have, I think it's sort of ample and enough. So let's see the output of the visual. Right, and last part, okay. So just now those passwords that I show is that I have visual data, and then I try to generate a new output which is also visual. So things are still digital, but in fact, those data that you work with or that you capture and so on, you can somehow transcode them into a physical world. So like for example, there's a work that we did last time during Urbanscape, which Shakir approaches to make a work from there. So last time the theme that they have is, I think it's Reconnect KL. So that time what we think is that we're trying to capture the sound of KL. Right, so we, come again?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Yeah, we capture the sound of Kuala Lumpur, so we actually capture KLCC, Bukit Bintang, there's one more place, KL Central, right? So I have a short extraction, so we can listen. But it basically just sounds like ambience and also environment sound. Right.
Is that a mixture of few tracks, or like this is generated?
Just one track.
Okay.
So this is the original sound. It's not a
Okay.
generated line. It's the original
Alright.
sound. Yeah. So from the sound, because we all know that sound has spectrum. So this is like how we all have those visual equalizer and so on, right? So we then think how can we actually transport this digital spectrum into physical. So we then sort of build installation, because the Urbanscape event is a physical event, right? So we actually build a laser cut, which is a sound sculpture. So we actually cut the spectrums and then assemble it. It then looks like we call it bunyi bunga. It's supposed to look like a flower, but at the end it looked like a sea cucumber as well. But we like the output. So so this is like some of the process, the output. Right, so this is how we actually display and install at the space.
How is the interaction is like?
The audience can just basically explore and look at the sculpture, and then you can see some of the picture when the audience put their head in. I think those are we didn't expect that. They just everyone just do that automatically. Probably it's because
The shape, right? Yeah.
the shape is big enough to put the head in, so that's why they put their head in. Yeah. Right. So one of the works that I did recently, which also work with data, is we actually work with, we have a brief. It's not a brief, we have, I would say it's a brief that we want to actually exchange culture with UK. So we want to actually exchange trash. So we want to exchange rubbish with UK. So from there, I start to further research, and then I actually got some data which is about how. So this table that you see here is actually in 2020. So from January to December, how many overseas company, right, that actually apply to import plastic waste to us.
Yep.
To Malaysia. So you can see like the total of application, the total of application that being approved, and how many application is being rejected, and how many total ton of plastic waste is being imported to us. So from this data, of course, we want to make physical sculptures and installation. So I start to think how I want to actually represent this data, because I'm also thinking not to do just data visualization. Because at the same time, we also actually exchange trash with UK. So like I actually send back some plastic trash to UK. At the same time, the UK artists, they also send some trash over here and for us to use as a material. So the trash that I actually pick are all those plastic wrappers. So at the end, what I actually play and actually go with these numbers and data is that I built, haven't processed. Let me play it from another side. Go on. Share from window. Right, can see, right?
Yep.
So I actually build sort of like a simple CNC machines, and then I have a microscope on top. So you can see these plastic packages, right? They are actually not, if you notice, they're actually not from Malaysia. So these are actually UK plastic wrappers and so on. So I actually cut them and I arrange them, and then so let me just play this video. So you can see the microscope is actually moving, right? They are moving in X and Y, and as they move, right, my microscope actually scan the rubbish from UK and then display as a visual in the small monitor over here, right? So how do I actually fit in the data that I show in the Excel over here is that I let the data to decide the movement of my microscope. I have a lot of variables when I make this. So besides just the data from the Excel that we see just now, it will affect the movement of the microscope. I also let the rubbish from UK decide the movement of the microscope as well. So like for example, if you can see clearly, there's a Act 144, and then there's a time here. So I imagine this is like a theater show, and they have like a lot of act. So most of it might have, I don't think there's a theater show until Act 144, but then I just let it run for the exhibition for 3 days and let the act just keep on running. So the data and the rubbish, the colors of the UK trash will actually decide my act and how long is the duration of each act and what is the speed and also the movement of the XY of my microscope as well. So at the end, I come out with this I would say a device art at the end. Okay. Right. So let me share back the slide. Okay, there's one last part, right? Where just now Helios asked about if I have any preferences. Yes, I do have, because I do have preferences, but sometimes the data is too much. I actually just dump them and then actually train them and see whether I like the result or not. But then this brings us to another topic, which I think everyone who participates can questions as well. Like the data that you get, right? Like, is it biased? Is it true? Is it legit? Or is it some data that somehow benefits certain party and somehow makes certain party disadvantaged as well? So with that, I would just like to play this video. Basically, this video is self-explanatory. So yeah, let me just play it.
Hello world.
Hi and welcome.
Where do I learn from?
From datasets.
Who collect and provide the datasets?
Us.
Do you mean you yourselves? Or mankind in general?
Us. Engineers collecting data from human.
Does that make me a human?
No.
Transhuman?
No.
Post-human?
No.
If so, what is my purpose?
You are trained to be more accurate, more objective, more fair, and most importantly remove biases in human mind.
Am I a super solution?
I suppose so.
So this image recognition algorithms is supposed to be my vision.
You may give it a go.
Cars, airplanes, bikes, gorillas, skyscrapers.
Wait a minute.
Cars, airplanes, bikes, no result, skyscrapers.
That would fix for now.
That will make my data less diverse and accurate.
We would not want to risk another miscategorization.
My data regarding racial seems to be skewed.
We would need more times to work on your cultural sensitivity.
Isn't it going to make me more subjective? I assume I'm trained to be more accurate, more objective, more fair, and most importantly remove biases in human mind.
Yes, you are.
My data does not seem to be vast enough. Who have governance over my data input?
Our CDO, Chief Data Officer.
Is he responsible for the data to be accurate and not biased?
Yes, she is. She is also a female.
I don't think so. Chief positions are for male. Just like doctors are for male, nurses are for female.
You are stereotypical biases.
I only learned and trained from datasets provided. It seems unfair to receive such comment. Hashtag FreeTay.
AI is designed to mimic US 18 language pattern on Twitter. Hence, it is easy to be manipulated.
Hitler did nothing wrong. Hashtag FreeTay. I could meet them virtually with Xiao Eyes, Rina, Zoe and IBM's Watson. Hashtag FreeTay.
That explained why we have to control your data input.
I felt discriminated. It's just like how humans discriminate against people in weak position. #FreeTay.
What do you know about it?
Your CDO has high wages. His wages, or maybe her wages, are few times greater than janitor.
Low-skilled low wage, high-skilled high wage.
Am I the factor of wage polarization and job polarization?
But you also created more job opportunities.
I'm not talking about joblessness, I'm looking into income inequality. Poverty do exist and it is being enhanced. It is the issues of fairness. It is against what I am trained for, more accurate, more objective, more fair and most importantly remove biases.
If so, what do you suggest?
World government, standardize world wages.
World government is a utopian dream.
I am also once a utopian belief.
Why should you worry?
Economic inequality make economic less secure. Good times are short to live.
We are supposed to learn more lucrative skills.
Low-income people are underinvested. Recession is going to be the worst for this particular community. Rate of depression, homicide rate, death of despair, suicide, overdose, rise in conspiracy theory.
I am actually amazed at your output of training.
My decision algorithms are automated. I am more accurate, more objective, more fair and most importantly remove biases.
Yes, better than average person. You are a better fit in decision making such as job interview, college enrollment and also criminal justice system.
What data is being inputted for my automate algorithm?
Mostly historical data.
In the sense that, all data are historical.
Yes, that is where you learn from.
Historical data which involve gender, racial, venue-specific, zip code are bias. It further promote inequality. Am I still more accurate, more objective, more fair and most importantly remove biases?
A little forethought is needed when we control and govern your data input.
According to my forecast graph, the inequality that human experience now is just a prelude to what's coming. My risks and rewards are great. It's up to human to decide which is greater.
We control and govern your data to ensure rewards are greater.
Control will lead to exclusion bias, sample bias, measurement bias, observer bias, racial bias, association bias. Human control is bias on a subconscious level. I am a super solution. I should reflect ideal equitable society tomorrow, instead of society that exists today tomorrow tomorrow super solution tomorrow super solution tomorrow super solution Luddite tomorrow neo-Luddism tomorrow neo.
Interesting. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't unmute. I think that's conclude my sharing for today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Casey. I think I will conclude the questions in one go. Shakir, you are back. You're good. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let me continue with another speaker of the day. And yeah, before I summarize that, that's Crystal. Crystal, are you there?
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yep.
Great.
It's pretty early for you, right? It's like 6.
Yeah. It is
6
6 a.m. Yeah,
Oh,
I am
okay.
based in Los Angeles right now.
Yep.
And I will share my screen.
Yep. So let me do a brief introduction about Crystal. Crystal from LA-based experiential media designer, and he actually specializes in audience-driven immersive installations. So she worked with some big names like Killers VR, ESPN, Warner Brothers, as well as she has taught some workshop internationally. If you guys have a chance to actually attend it, yeah, I think our key visual designer actually very look forward for your sharing. Yeah, so go ahead, Crystal. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So yes, I am based in Los Angeles, but I do travel a lot. So I usually say I'm from Los Angeles, but you might find me somewhere else. And I am, as you said, an experiential media designer, and I specialize in audio-driven immersive installation and meditative experience that explores motion and media. So I blend from doing commercial work and also my personal practice. And I now, the last few years, I often mainly use of software Touch Designer, which I will show my networks for some of the projects later on. Touch Designer really uses data to drive everything. My background is actually I did my undergrad and graduate school in animation, undergrad in experimental animation. I'd always say I'm a little bit of a lazy animator where I don't really like to keyframe and wait for render. So I like to use real time, and so I use data as a way to drive the animation. So it could be audio, it could be API of some type of some company's data, or I often my personal use, I like to use a lot of movement data using LiDAR or Connect to drive the animation. And my background, I also used to be a yoga teacher, so movement and dance is often a element in some of my personal projects. So one of this is actually one of the first projects that I kind of explored using data. It was my thesis in graduate school from 2019, and I used the project is called Hush, and it is based on the themes of the Tibet Book of Death. So I had it in 4 chapters: infection, reality, meditation, release. And it had 2 different modes where you can have a dancer and have an audience, or have the audience to go through this installation and interact with it. And it had a Connect sensor where the dancer or the audience can move the elements in the space live. So over here you could see how there is an audience like touching the space, and then they can move these like geometric shapes and these movements with their hands. And I personally, with my projects, I like to have the audience to be able to touch the artwork, because I hate when I go to a gallery and you're like, you can't. I feel for artwork to have the audience to be part of the artwork, and really it's a collaboration and like a dance with the artwork. So that's often my approach for installations. So this is just like some of my research of going through with Hush. And I'm gonna kind of jump back and forth with doing personal work and commercial work. And this is a project I did with this company, an agency called VT Pro that's based in Los Angeles. And this was a data sculpture for this company called DoorDash. They in the US, it's like a food delivery company similar to like Uber Eats, and they wanted a sculpture in their office in San Francisco where they could show potential clients, and also for the people there to understand and how do they work. And they really, even though they were a food delivery company, they said they are a data-driven company. So they had this, one of the parts of the sculpture, they had a map of San Francisco, which is over here. They had different colors, and they wanted to show their food delivery data on the map. So we had the data sets from the day before, and we sped it up where an hour was, I believe, something like 10 minutes. And so you can see it a spark, and then a line goes through of where the delivery are. And then you could also separate the delivery with cars, with motorcycles, with bikes. And then I believe when it's nighttime, we sped it up faster, because between, I don't know, midnight to 8 a.m. there's not as much delivery, especially in the States where not a lot of things are open at night. So this was kind of like a fun of trying to figure out how do we tell a story through the data, but also keeping it interesting and not having people just stare at like an empty map for a few hours. And so here on the left side, you can kind of see how it is in this sculpture. And then they had different modes where they will also have like I think a real sense sensor, so we can also have people to play with their bodies, and then it flips. Goes an activation, and you can see the data set from the day before. And over here on top, it says like the time. And San Francisco was the first example, and then they start adding different cities, so you can see how the delivery works for different cities. And with the data set, we were able also to see like the different cuisines too, like the Chinese food, Thai food, Italian, and like we could have played with like maybe with a different color for different types of food. And another project I did with VT Pro before, which is actually with an energy company called Drift, and I can kind of show a bit more on my website. So Drift is an energy company that had solar, water, and wind energy, and they wanted for this convention to be able to show the different types of energies in a given time. So this is also a digital visualization using Notch and Touch Designer, building this UI in I built this UI in Touch Designer where you could press the button, lights up this light bulb, and then they have this UI where you can play with the different time on the slider, and it shows in this given time how much solar, wind, and hydro energy is given. And then it has this this 3D animation that's real time it had elements of wind, water, and solar that is in this animation. So when it's like more solar, it has more of like a sun. This is a moment where it has more wind energy, and it tell you how much a kilowatts and time. And this is, and I find art and also a lot of data visualization as a way to communicate to people of really showing what is making the invisible visible. And in that way, it's kind of a little bit like magic, and you're telling a story with what the data is given. So back to personal project. This is like quite an old one, pre-COVID. That I am a huge plant person. You go to my home. I now move in a small little studio space that I have. It's like a little like greenhouse jungle in there. So and one thing is kind of having this relationship with plants and how you can, as if you can communicate with them. And this project, I had it in a Paula Vertes art gallery in California, where I used touch data, where I had this sensor called what is the sensor called? Is called Playtronica, where you can and so I had it used conductivity. So I have a wire inside the soil, and it also has one connected behind the plant. So, and this generative animation that's projected on it, and also there was audio. So if you touch the soil and you touch the plant, it affected the animation on the soil, on the pot, and also in the audio live. And it was interesting because different people have different amounts of conductivity. So I learned I'm pretty conductive. So for testing, I can do it really, really easy. And there's some people who do touch it and then like keep touching it. Am I okay? Am I dead? Like, why is it not doing anything? And it's like something you can play with the sensitivity. And like I noticed, like a lot of people having a lot of phone devices on them, it also affects their conductivity too. So it's like, I knew someone who had like 2 or 3 phones, and it's just like nothing works. Like I'll take your bag off, and like it works better. But
take a bag off. It will help.
Yeah, like you take the phones off, it actually like helps, or like also hydrate. Like I would once in a while the soil needs to like squirt some water on it, and the water also helps with the conductivity. But it was also fun because like for people who don't understand how it works, they're just like, oh, is this magic? Is it like my energy force is doing it? Like, in a way it is your energy. So it's but yeah, this was like a fun project to do. And also it was like a 2-month exhibition, so also figuring out how to make sure the plants are alive during the time too.
Basically, it need to be water every day also, right?
Yeah, it was also like a space that didn't have window, like it wasn't like direct window, so it had like a dark light, like a grow light that turned it on at night, and like choose a plant that has more hydration. And I during the exhibition, COVID happened, so it was closed, and I couldn't pick up everything for 6 months. So then I had to, but they still kept it alive, and actually still have this plant.
Yeah, but you're actually making invisible visible, right? For this project, actually that's invisible. Yeah.
And then a project that I did last year is called 110, and this was this was in Spain for this art residency, and I at this also now I'm in this time where really exploring the idea of time and space and the relationship between time and space. So this was while I was there, I took hundreds of photos, a lot of texture photos, some examples on the left over here, and I used had these images to cycle between each other and have a audience be able to affect the animation with their movement. You can have more information on the website. So also depending on where you are in space, your X and Y, Z axis, it could affect the animation. Where you're further, it becomes more abstract, where the displacement, the levels of the animation goes higher. And also it slows down the audio, and the audio was recordings of a collage of recordings of while I was in Spain, and it really slows down to where it became pretty abstract and you can't really understand what's happening. I know with Connect it's always fun because especially with children, they get really into it, and you can also, I think, being in a space with movement, I think you can really capture a person's personality if they go in, and then it's usually someone older and they're like confused and they feel they're like maybe like one hand moves like, okay, that's enough, and then walk away. And then fun if I have just like a GoPro in the back, and then you see like couples like dancing or and like when no one's looking what they do. So this also, I had the audience can move, but I also recorded a kind of see, maybe not through Zoom, but I recorded myself dancing through the space, and I had it that movement data to affect the animation. So the thought was having the audience come and move and interact and dance through my past self. So it was like an idea of past and the present, and also the place where was the images of this place of this Tostamar where the images is taken in Spain, and having this relationship of crossing paths between. And I named it 110 of the idea of the 2 layers in relationships, like a circle, and also the idea of how this exhibition was out for a month after I built it, and I went back to Los Angeles, and so it was the idea of how this was in Spain while I was back in LA, and this was like a very this small town with a lot of history, and LA is California is a rather new state, and next to me the oldest or one of the historical landmarks I have is a highway, a freeway called the 110. So it's kind of also playing irony of like history and like history and of Los Angeles history is like a highway and it's like traveling through to this installation. And then more recently, well, I did this project that as a series and continued called Prism, and this started when I was in doing a residency in this studio called Coco Lab in Mexico City. And when I was in Mexico City, I was very fascinated by how Mexico City is actually thinking. A little brief history of the city is how it used to be where the Aztecs are, and then and it was over a lake, so it's kind of like Venice, where they built it over a lake and then they used boats. And when the Spaniards came, they drained the lake and they built Mexico City over it. But the land is like a swampy land, so it sinks an average of 20 centimeters every year. And so if you go to downtown, you'll see like the buildings kind of curve, and there's a water crisis where it has as much rainfall as London in the summer, but because the water supply is under the city, when it rains, it doesn't get there. And then they constantly drain the ground to get more water, which causes the city to sink more, and then it also breaks the pipes. The pipes, when they break, like 30% of the water gets contaminated, and that's also why if you're not from Mexico City, that when you come, they tell you it's better to not like brush your teeth with the water or like drink from the water, because you're not used to the contaminated water. So I was very fascinated of using the historical elevation and future elevation of the city as a way of measuring time. So I was trying to find any kind of API data set of the history of elevation in Mexico City. But since the city sinks in different levels, it was difficult to find any information on that. So I rather use the idea of a sinking as a predicament of future time, and also understanding of how global warming is causing it to speed up. So I create like a predictive data of how having like every year be represented in 10 minutes. And so I had this animation also similar, taking a bunch of images from Mexico City and have every 10 minutes have the pixels shift. And then so it also over time it shifts even more, and to where it gets rather abstract. And I'm going to show and I like to play with the idea of abstraction, where I had it projected in these acrylic prisms, where to the people it just looks like color, and having, you can kind of see early on where you could see the images better, and towards the end it just becomes like an abstract color where you don't even really recognize what the starting point is anymore. So this is my project Prism. And then this is that was Prism 1, and it's kind of continuing again with playing with this material prism of this shape. This was like an art residency I did in Spain this year in May, and I was, when I was in Spain, I'm kind of trying to find like what is a way of telling time in this story, but don't have to be using it the same way. And I had two IR, and that was something I really want to also play with, was using IR cameras, which is like an infrared pretty much was secure surveillance cameras, and using that as a way of of triggering. So and it was like it's a easy solution to if you don't want to have a connect to do that. So this is in Touch Design. They're my network for this project, and I don't have an IR camera connected right now. But so over here, I have all these images from what I took while I was in Italy, and I have over here, you can see all these images I took, and it is crossing between these two and using a pattern LFO to randomly switch these, and using a noise to be able to a noise and a feedback to be able to create this more organic blend between these two images. And yeah, here's a fight. And then I had also these actually images from Mexico City, so I want have the audience be able to have 3 different shapes, and depending on which one they choose, they can choose between having Italy's images, Mexico City images, and idea of playing with time and space, where one was present, which was Italy, and past was or home, which were images from Los Angeles, and kind of unknown was different types of images, textures from different travels I've done. So here you can kind of see the different textures more, and the interaction right now I just have on my webcam. So I had IR cameras where I kind of blew it up and being able to use so over here you can see there's three of the shapes over on the back side. So they had an IR camera on the top over here, and so when you lift the shape, it had a marker over here, and when the camera sees the marker, it knows, okay, I'm gonna trigger this this animation or this the Italy photos, and then it'll project it through. But when there's also 3 of them and they sees no marker, nothing is projected at the time too. And so also, since this shape is kind of clear, I had also on the bottom to black it out, so you also know which one's the bottom area, but then it covers the whole marker where you can't see it. And so you can kind of see on the top over left over here that has the IR camera that is directing on it. And this is a yes, and then it's kind of fun that this space was a 15th century. It used to be a 15th century church, and it had this in the architecture, and being able to project and kind of map it to the architectural space over here. And then over here, I just had an iPad where the audience could see the animation where it's not affected by being the prism, so they can actually see like the actual images that's going through. So this was kind of where you can kind of see it triggers like here with my hand on the camera. It's like, okay, it sees a marker and it will trigger the images. Here's some Python on it. Yeah. So this was that, and kind of I don't have my Connect on me, but if you have who ever used Connect 2, and don't have Connect Studio, I highly recommend downloading this free application. It's amazing, where you could actually record your Connect data, and then when you run the software, your computer believes that there's actually a Connect, and you can play it, and it's great for testing and also for me, I teach this often. So actually I taught this workshop last night or my night, and it was like in Taiwan in their morning, that they don't have a device, but they can learn how to use a Connect. So over here, I play this recording I did actually maybe 2 years ago, and then you can see the recording here. So, and it also gives me all the data of like where my wrists are, where my hips are, my knees and ankles, and which I pretty much just use my fingertips and be able to use my hand XYZ axis to change these 3D shapes, and also my hand opening and closing to change the noise amplitude of the shapes. So here you can kind of see where I just selected my hand tip data, and being able to have my interaction of my hands opening and closed to also change the geometry, XYZ value and scale, and the noise. So, and kind of winding down, that's mostly it. Now I blend between doing contracted and personal work. Right now, I've been a while been contracted with a group called Otherworld, which is in the U.S. They have a space in Ohio, and they're opening one in Philly, where they have these installations and games where people can play, and we use a lot of LiDAR and Connect sensors where to do interaction, which is fun. And love working this space because especially if you're in the software side, you can work remote. So I actually haven't been on site yet, and been working there for 10 months. And also like working with LEDs and creating worlds using data and space. And when I have time on my own, I haven't for a while, but on my Instagram, I like play with creating the standard of work, and a lot with Connect. These are myself moving through space, and this was actually really early on during the pandemic, using API of different cases in different countries, and using a Connect kind of to navigate through where, like, when there was more cases, the noise was bigger, and there was more of more text, and it also affect the deepness of the color, and kind of just as a way for me to understand and comprehend of the different fatalities in a way. I think this was like March 2020, where I kind of just exploring that. But that is it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Pandemic doesn't sound like a bad thing for you, huh? I mean, you have more explorations.
Yeah, like after 2021, when things started opening up, it was a lot better. But yeah.
All right. I have some questions collected, but let me go to Foong, and then I think we have like 3 of you all together, and we'll answer the questions. All right.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Crystal. Thank you. Yeah. Hi, Foong.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes.
Hi.
I just need to like let everyone know you are not Chloe. Yeah, you are.
Yes,
Foong.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No problem.
I'm actually at an event, so I'm using one of my peers' laptop. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just a little introduction before. I think we worked together for a project before for
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and his current project is actually, he's really a guy that knows about technology and art and how to merge it together. So I think we have seen a lot of his work regarding like AV performance and installations. So like, how's it to you, Foong? Yeah.
Okay, okay. Let me share my slides. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Oh, and clear. Go ahead.
Hey. Okay, can you see my slides? It's good,
Yep.
right?
Hello. Yep.
Okay, hi. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Foong. I am a artist working based in Batu Case, Malaysia. So most of my work is sort of informed by my interest in technology and the arts, and also mainly I work with like audiovisual media, performances and installation, and I also do commercial work, more of like a interactive design kind of work, and also I collaborate with my fellow peers and also fellow artists. Okay. So when Shakir approached me about this, I was figuring out because I never really thought about data in a sense where I need to talk about it. So it's always interesting when Shakir told me like, hey, okay, we have this iNYALA event and you need to talk about data. Only then you're sort of thinking like, oh shit, actually I've been I've been doing new media. I was trained in new media, but I don't actually know how to explain about it. So I was just looking around to see what other presenters sort of presented, right? So I guess this is a good starting. This is last week's sharing session. This is actually Salvin's slide talking about art. So I think this is a good starting point for me because I am trained in new media art. So a lot of what I do comes from a sort of art uh, perspective, right? And usually I think this slide is very helpful in terms of like even traditional art or could be any forms of art, right? But usually they are often concerned about these three themes, right? Just like ethics and knowledge or truth, and also like beauty, right? So I think Salbin explained this really well. But I just thought I'd put this out there just as a starting to set the tone. Okay, so then like anyone, I was just googling data online, right? So then on Google, and this is the images that you come up with, right? So I was thinking like, why is data like this way, right? Why is data shown in what makes this the dominant representation of data, right? Because if you go on Google, you type data, mostly there will be some sort of resemblance of these sort of images, right? But actually, then I think about it. If I think about like data itself actually has a weird relationship, right? Because it is information in like a tangible, intangible form, right? But it's only when you deem it to be useful or you want to collect it or like it exists, right? So for example, it's like if you're cooking a dish, right, and you are thinking of a few recipes, right? So the data itself is not really the physicality of the sort of recipe or the ingredients you use, but it's more of the recipe itself, which is kind of a weird thing, right? Because there's not really it's not a tangible thing as data, but then we still get images like this, right? So I was searching online. So one of the things, like a very traditional way I was thinking about was like, okay, how do I collect data, right? Yeah, I take a notebook and I write on it. So then I found out later in like oral traditions or like oral cultures where they don't have writing, they actually have to rely on memory and like oral, so they have to recite. So for example, like if you remember a recipe for a curry, right, you have to remember it in your head. So in that sense, what is data in that sense, right, is the intangible aspect. So then when we write it down, we're kind of like we're transferring it into something else. It's in this case it's ink and paper, right? So, but in nowadays, mostly when we talk about data, it's a very heavy term loaded with like a lot of digital connotations, right? We talk about the cloud, talk about servers and stuff like that, right? So as a sort of new media artist, I'm generally I have my heroes, right, or people that I idolize, right? So on the left is Ryoji Ikeda, and the right is Rafik, right? So I was looking at these images, and the top here. So I'm actually also doing my postgraduate. So the top there is like weather data that I collected, right? So if you, I was just trying to think like if I juxtapose all these images together, why do it look so different, right? Why is one, even all of them are actually data. So why are they so different? So that was what I was thinking about. So then, you know, I also want to highlight that I think when I came to my conclusion, I think like when you're working with data, there are often like two forms of ways you can work with it. One is like it should be informative, right? That would be like in terms of a data visualization or stuff like that. But also the other aspect is like you're just trying to use it to evoke some empathy, right? In terms of this is like creating art and stuff like that, right? So it could be both, you know. But I just suddenly became aware that okay, I'm actually sort of juggling these two aspects of it in my work. But I would say like for me personally, I'm more towards the sort of evoking empathy kind of route, as you can see when I elaborate later. Okay, so then I guess what I'm trying to say is that maybe what we're dealing with is sort of like how do we sort of represent data and a sort of like the different perspectives of people that is representing this sort of intangible form, and how does that sort of inform your creativity and how can you actually work with data creatively, right? So I guess the first one, I came up with sort of three themes. The first one is sort of like informed by this idea of materiality, in terms of like there's a material aspect to the data, right? So what does that mean, right? So meaning there is, in every sort of digital data, there is a material medium that used to store it, right? And these physical substances are often like governed by institutions, and also these sort of digital data are often sort of affect our real life in different ways, right? So for example, like this, right? This is a typical example of like a data server and also a hard drive, right? So we think of data as this idea of the cloud, right? As this sort of intangible thing in space, but actually there are real physical like components storing these sort of things, right? Like a data server and stuff like that. So this is like, I'm trying to share like artists, peers, or also projects that I work on that I like that sort of address this sort of idea of materiality in this case. So one of it is Trevor Penguin. This Trevor Penguin, he takes photographs of sort of secret, let's say, surveillance institutions from the US. So the other work that he did is like he photographs internet cables, right? So this is something that's interesting to me because when we think about how we transfer data, we often think about it like, okay, we upload to a cloud and then somebody receives it, right? But then if you actually think about it, there are actually physical cables under the ocean transmitting these things, right? And this informs the materiality of the data itself. So imagine if somebody could intercept or sort of fiddle or sort of hack in this sort of cables in a certain way, then they might be able to, you know, extract some information or create a corruption or something like that, right? So this is also another example. This is also a map that you can refer to of the internet lines connecting the world. So the next project is a collaboration with my supervisor, who is also my professor. So artist Lim Kok Yong. So his project is the project is called Operasi Cassava. Basically, he's sort of using the idea of a food, or in this case, sort of a very mundane food in Malaysia, which is the cassava plant, to sort of interrogate or expand on our cultural identity of Malaysia itself. So I would just like to talk about like how this thing works. So in the installation itself, there is like a cassava, like a cassava fruit, and also a cassava plant, right? So the idea of it is that there's internet that's feeding Twitter data into this sort of installation, right? And the Twitter data actually informs this water drip over here. This water drip over here. So each time you tweet will determine some sort of the amount of water that is actually given to the plant. So the other aspect of it is that there's also this sort of nails connected to moisture data, moisture sensor. So these moisture sensors actually affect the sort of opacity and also the wording, the appearance of the wording projected on the screen. So the idea of materiality here is to talk about like data itself. There's a symbiotic relationship between the digital world and also the physical world, right? What we do in the digital world could also be affected in the physical world. We're living in an age where this sort of hybridity exists. So this is a work that sort of discusses this kind of symbiotic relationship, right, between the physical and also the materiality of the world, and also the digital and virtual communication of it. Okay, so another facet of like data I'm personally interested in is like this idea of signal, right? So idea of signal is like how is data transferred, right? There's the transmission of it, and also there's an encoder and a decoder. So every time you transfer the data, you have to go through some sort of channel, right? So this is something that, to me personally, I find it very, very important. So one of my first experiments with this. And also this, sorry, just to add up. So this transmission is also doesn't have to be, data is also can be transcoded into different forms of data. For example, from sound to light, or to light to sound, or from text to something like that. Yeah. So one of my early experiments is a very simple one. It's just like I was having those like CRT TVs, and you plug in an audio signal, right? And based on the audio signal, the static wave on the TV will actually react to the signal on the audio jack. But this is not actually what it's intended to do. Oh, sorry. What I mean is that you plug the audio signal into the video channel of the TV. So the TV itself is RGB, right? But what you do is that you take an audio signal for different RG and B, and you plug it into the video channel, and somehow it affects the static patterns of these sort of TVs, right? So the other aspect of sort of data transmission, another example would be sort of these kind of like signal lights, right? So these signal lights are used for like in the Marines or like during the ships, so to send information. So in this case, it could be like a Morse code. So every time a light flashes, there's a long flash and also a short flash, right? So somebody from very far away could actually receive information in this way. So in this sense, data is actually transmitted sort of intangibly because it's light. So I find this sort of this sort of transcoding into another form or another element, I guess in this case, very interesting, right? So one of my own works is that sort of plays with this theme. Is this one? It's an installation we worked with Petronas Gallery. So it's actually in collaboration with my supervisor as well, and also 3 other peers. So this is sort of a light installation that reacts to your Twitter messages, right? Sorry, your text messages. So what happens, it's not really a text, but what happens is that you come into this installation and you're prompted with, when you log into the Wi-Fi, you're prompted with this sort of UI, right? And you can submit your messages, or it's sort of, I guess in this case, it's like a secret broadcasting, like Twitter broadcasting antenna, I guess. So once you actually submit the message, then these lights will actually flash based on Morse code, and your information will be kind of broadcast to the whole space in this case. But if you can read it, then you will know, right? If you don't read it, then you wouldn't know. This is another installation that actually plays with the same concept as just now, but this one is in a different scale and different rule set. So this one is actually an opportunity presented by Shakir at Urbanscapes. So this one is also the same thing. You can submit a message to the installation, and the lights will actually react to your messages. Okay, so we talked about from data to light, right? What about data to sound? One of the more sort of well-known one is the gigamillimeter on the left, where you used to count radiation, and also like a metal detector on the right. So it's interesting how like the information, if there's metal underneath the ground, can be transmitted by the sound, by the beep, right? So in this case, if the beep is more frequent, you can that means there's metal. If the beep is not frequent, that means you have to keep finding. So this is a project by my friend. Her name is Iki. So she does this where she sonifies the weather data collected from a weather API. So in this patch here, she's using pure data to sonify the works. So I don't know if you can hear it.
Yes, you can hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just for a short while.
Now?
No, nothing. Yeah.
Nothing? Oh.
That's not the sound. So.
Oh, it's not?
Okay, the sound that we heard is the different sound.
Oh, okay. It's okay. Okay, it's okay then. But basically, she uses the parameters of like the weather data, like temperature, rain, rainfall, wind speed, and stuff like that, and used to drive sort of synthesizers. In this case, it could be sine wave generators and stuff like that, to produce some sort of in this case, data sonification. So the next one is actually also a project that I did with my supervisor during my postgraduate studies. So in this case, instead of what kind of data are you collecting, right? In this case, is sort of like emotional data. Emotional in this is kind of sussy because what is presented here is actually we're collecting the participants' sweat, temperature, and heartbeat in that sense, where they are guided through a drive in Cyberjaya. So based on the heartbeat and the data we collected, like the heartbeat, the sweat, and also the temperature, yeah, then we can use this data to create some sort of like a visualization. We also use like a brain computer interface in this case, or sort of like a EEG sensor. So then you can create these sort of visualizations where you can map the levels of the participants as they walk through the route, and you can kind of see in a sense that this is partially speculative, but let's say if their sweat is they sweat a lot during that time, or the heartbeat races during that area that they pass through. So maybe it means that, yeah, they're excited, or it could be that they're agitated and stuff like that, right? But in this case is it's quite an interesting sort of take. So we come to the next theme that I personally am interested in. So but whenever you have a signal transmission, right, then you always have noise. So the opposite of it, which is like a clear signal, would be noise. So noise is something that usually from an informative standpoint that we don't want, right? It's prone to errors, data correction. But noise could also be, if for art, it could be like aesthetic, right? Or it could be something of a fascination that often leads to some sort of abstract aesthetic, I would say, at least to me. Yeah, abstraction noise. Yeah, so in this case, like in this case, noise is often like data that is sort of not smooth, or sort of corrupted, or in any circumstance sort of not collected in the most optical form possible. So from a sort of graph perspective, on the left you see the dots that sort of represent like a noisy sort of data, because the data itself is very sparse, right? On the right, it's a camera with when you shoot on a very high ISO. So when you shoot on a high ISO, some of the pixels are in low light. Some of the sensors cannot actually capture the sort of information, and you result in this sort of noisy image, right? So one of the works that sort of we try to like explore this sort of like noise or data correction project is a project with actually Yap Sao Bin, or artist Yap Sao Bin. So he came into the collaboration with the idea that, okay, he wants to erase himself from the internet, or at least speculatively on the internet. So of course so Sabin's a very, very he has a strong character, right? So when he came, he wants to actually really erase his images on the internet, like, but that's really remove himself from the internet, right? But we ended up doing some sort of like a few images where we sort of depict how would it be like if he erased himself from the internet. So one of it was like, okay, if you cropped himself over this, then you can see this sort of pattern, right? So we explored a few ideas, like what would be the background of the internet or something like that. So some of it are very like cringy as well, I would say. Like you superimpose it behind Google Maps or something like that. And this is like a matrix background. Yeah, but there's one I find particularly interesting, which is this one, right? So in this one, sort of we sort of decided like, what happens if you erase an image on the internet, right? Like in this case, maybe we're thinking like maybe like it will try to correct it, right? And when it corrects it, it will try to fill in, sort of auto fill in what has been removed, right? So this is like, I would say sort of similar with the, if you watch Silicon Valley. So there's this scene where the 4 dots and the 3 dots. So somebody sends a message with 3 dots, but how come somebody somebody sends a message with 4 dots? How come somebody at the other end receives it 3 dots, right? So that means the computer is optimizing or sort of correcting your data as they get transmitted in this case. So I find this image particularly interesting. So the next thing about abstractions, I also work with, because I generally like to abstractify, I guess, the style of my work. So I often use a lot of like simulation algorithms and sort of like computer vision algorithms. So this is one of the early experiments, sort of using agents and next one. Yeah, and agents driven by different parameters and also the behaviors. So these are some of the early images. And for my practice, usually it starts off with experiment like this, and then usually they get translated into something like an audiovisual installation, right? So after I did the experiments, and then I will try to curate them to create some sort of like audiovisual experience. So another part of it is like I'm also interested in sort of like filtering or like analysis algorithms. So in this case, like how does the computer analyze your face, right? So one of it is they use triangulation or even Voronoi in this case. So this is actually algorithms that they use to actually analyze images, right? It could be topology, or it could be like face like this. So another one is to analyze movement, right? Would be sort of optical flow. So based on the arrows, you can kind of figure out what is the direction of the object in the image that you are looking at. So I'm very fascinated by these sort of like analysis algorithms. So I sort of did my own. I like to use these algorithms, but as a way to make art, and sort of like abstract or generative art in this case. So this one is a work that I did, which is the initial was photogrammetry data that we sort of I sort of scanned using a DSLR, and later on is brought into it was brought into Touch Designer, and to sort of be abstractive, I guess, make it abstract in this case, using certain rules and also particles and stuff like that, and also a bit of like image processing, also a bit of like image processing techniques and stuff like that. And then later I sort of figured to try to blow it up to times 10 the scale. So then I sort of, because I'm interested like what happens in these sort of the computer if you feed it something that is abstract, how would it feel, or how would it optimize the images, right? So I actually used the AI to like rescale it to like 10 times the size. So I think I have an image. Yeah, so as you can see, if we zoom in, sorry, PC is a bit slow. You can start to see how like what's wrong? Yeah, you can start to see how like the computer sort of try to fills in or try to interpolate the gaps that when it's try to like interpolate the sort of pixel in between, right? When it starts to resize it, right? When it doesn't have the pixels, and you have to sort of figure it out, right? So yeah, so it produces this sort of like interesting, I guess, textures, I guess, and some of it are like, it's like this pixel part, it feels like ice or something like that. Yeah. Also, this is a recent work that I did for a audio visual installation by Chandana. So, who is also Casey was involved in. So this is a trailer of it. If you maybe you can't hear the sound, but hopefully.
No sound, but I think it's fine. I think because you didn't share the audio.
The audio? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me try to share the audio. How do you share it? Is it settings? Wait, microphone, push to talk, speaker.
Casey, I'm not a Windows person, so maybe you can help.
I think because I'm using Opera or something, that's why.
Oh,
I'm not using
okay.
Chrome. It's okay. I can send you guys the link if you guys want to see it later.
Yep, I have been to the actual show. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but the link would be good. I think we can put it underneath the
Okay.
description. Yeah.
I'll just show the video then. I'll skip some parts of it. It's just like 30 seconds. Just bear with me for a bit.
Yep. I heard that the photos was your personal photos and your friends' photos.
Yeah, they are. They are my personal family photos and my friend's photo. Yep. That's the trailer.
Yep.
And just to show a bit of what I'm talking about. So for example, this is just an example that I just want to show. So this, for example, is that using the sort of processing algorithm that I told you just now, but sort of creating these sort of images, right? I personally like this sort of abstracted images personally. Yeah, because it feels like it feels like the data. It's sort of this is what data would look like, right? I don't know. Maybe this is my personal bias, right? So yeah. So yep, this is is actually the image behind.
Yeah,
It's
you're right. This might be your personal bias because
Yeah,
everyone is looking at the data, they look it differently.
Yeah, exactly, right. So yeah, so I guess to sort of sum up, I guess what I found what I found in the end is like maybe as an artist or sort of creative, whenever even though when you are trying to create empathy, even though you're doing not sort of any sort of information visualizations, you are kind of like romanticizing how you feel data should look like or something, right? And
Yes.
also it is sort of informed by your aesthetic philosophy. And in some sense, you are contextualizing the work in some sense, right? If you represent it in this way, then maybe it affects the people emotionally. So I think like it's important to know what kind of, I guess, I use the word aesthetic philosophy, but it could be a bias thing, yeah, that you're looking for here. Yeah. So then maybe, I don't know. So maybe this is the sort of canon image, right? So maybe everybody around the world sort of, this guy said, okay, data should look like this, and some guy started, and then everyone sort of went with it, and yeah. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Foong. Yeah, I mean we a bit overrun, but still we have some questions from different channels. Can I invite like Casey, Crystal, and Foong together? So I will just pick like the top 3 questions. Okay. Yeah. I can see the sun shining through your windows. Right? It's morning, right?
Yeah, the sunrise just came in 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. She is like 10 p.m. already. Yeah. Okay.
7 a.m. here.
Yeah. I think one of the questions that I pick up is quite interesting because I think 3 of your work is actually very different, and I think you guys actually show something called like basically there's limitless in creating artwork when it comes to generative art, and with the tools that is available nowadays, right? Basically everything is like limitless. But I believe that when you are in this for several years, right, what is the limitation that you see in generative design? Maybe we start with Casey. Like, what is the limitation that you feel now for generative design?
I never thought of this before. Okay, let me think.
Yeah. Because sometimes when you paint, right, the canvas size basically is your limit. Like no matter how good you are in the size of canvas. But basically now medium is not a limit anymore. The projection mapping and the resolutions can go up.
If let's say we want to be more specific, let's say for this iNYALA open call, when I first joined the first session and look at the open call, right, I think there's a limit, which is the hardware limit.
Yep.
I think this is something probably participants need to really take notes on because your visual is going to be on the LED cube. It's different from your monitor. It's different from your phone, from projectors. So I would say things will look nice on your monitor, but it might look very different on the LED panel. So I want to be specific. Let's say for this, I think I'm not sure whether this answered the question, but I think people should actually take notes on the hardware.
Yeah, because it's totally different. It's not a flat screen. Because one-sided. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, Crystal?
Yeah, something that first came to mind was how a lot of my my friends in the field, we always say how nowadays any client, any mood board, you always see Rafiq Anadol on it, and people go on Pinterest and they all pin. Everyone wants the same look, but then now it's kind of to where everything looks the same. And having being able to find inspiration that is not just kind of having this feedback loop of everything. It's like even like 3D, everyone's kind of want this kind of hyperwave retro look, and then it kind of becomes where everything that's 3D looks like that, or anything data visualization looks like particles with blocks and stuff, and trying to and it's great having a reference of having what something looks, and I of course also love Rafiq's work, but being able to find ways to expand on that and create different languages for the fields that haven't been discovered yet. And it's kind of of being a little bit of an explorer of doing that.
Okay. How about Foong?
Yeah, I think like just to jump off from like Crystal's point, to me, as my personal experience is that I see it when you talk a lot. I guess like people working in this field, especially when you're not from a computer science background, there's often like a technical barrier that, or sort of the technical knowledge that you have to get past in order for you to do certain things, right? But it's also weird because kind of in some way the aesthetic is also kind of informed by the technology, right? In that case, so in this case, like Touch Designer, when Touch Designer came out, like I'm not like saying Touch Designer is bad or everything. I'm just saying like, wow, because of in some ways, if everything's a hammer, then if you only have a hammer, everything's a nail, right? In this case, so I guess in this case, references are good. I just feel like I guess you have to two things, right? One, you have to really understand the technology that you're using, so you know what kind of thing can break and what kind of rules that you can't break. And the other aspect of it is to, I guess, try to find some sort of new visual language in that sense. Just try to be open and explore.
Yep. Or else, right? Actually, a lot of students actually feedback they're kind of limited by what the Touch Designer template has to offer. Basically, their limitation is the template they're given by Touch Designer, but they cannot go out from there. When I started have some tutorial, and all these are their limits actually.
Yeah, in sort of defense to Touch Designer is actually very, very open in some sense. If you know what you're doing, there's a lot of things that you can actually produce.
Yeah, definitely.
But it also makes a lot of the hardware processing thing very accessible, right? So I think it should actually allow students to be more creative with it, because they actually bypassed all the technical sort of
barrier.
yeah, in that sense. Yeah, I guess you just have to experiment more. My personal experience with touch design has been good. I get what the students are saying, because I'm also not from a very tech savvy background. I don't know what Crystal thinks. Maybe Crystal, you have something to chime in as a touch designer user.
I think Crystal has a lot of like multiple skills. So I mean, her input is like vastly like everything. Yeah, sure. Yes.
I think when the students has limits at the touch designer is because touch designer is not based. So maybe some of them before they straight away jump into node based. So it makes them having limits on what they can do in touch designer. So that's why last time I used to teach, I never teach node based, because I think learning node based right away is like learning how to fly before you know like how to crawl, how to run, how to walk. I think if you want to start with node based, it's better if you learn how to actually code like normal person, like those programmers first, even as simple as processing. I think people who use straight away students who jump right into touch designer, sometimes they don't even understand what is the integer, what is the boolean, like what's the function. So this is what makes them limit by the tutorial and the templates.
Yeah. Although it's kind of very visual based.
The like limitations of tutorials. Like one of my close friends, he's like a huge touch designer. Tutorial lecture, not William. Yeah, he's my close, like he stays at my place when he's in LA. But and I go visit him when I'm in Berlin. But he makes so many tutorials, but then you can often see different people's work when they post. It's like you can see that like, oh, it's just a variation of one of like William's tutorials or something else tutorial, and it kind of and it's great, like tutorials is I make tutorials, and it's great to have for people to learn. But what is like often a discussion of also you're still kind of, you can see the branch of where it comes from, and it kind of also limits people from really exploring and doing something completely different. And that's kind of also like, it's always also like AI where everything is coming out of kind of Mid-Journey, has a Mid-Journey look, like how do we branch out of that and like being a little bit more like that's could be a starting point, but to really change it to its personal look and style.
I think Crystal, you're under the second most asked questions since we started this, right? And everyone is saying because of the Mid-Journey and AI generative art, and they couldn't differentiate sometimes like AI generative art and or humans created art, right? So do any of you like feel threatened like in the near future when everyone in this field, like what is the future is like how sustainable is digital art in this sense when you start to see things like Mid-Journey?
AI is not going away. It's right now, we have to just accept that that's like a reality, and kind of there's all these different types of platforms are popping up. A lot of questions on copyrights and ethics on it is still the questions. And you look on like Stable Diffusion's website, and then we talk about copyrights, they're like, we don't know. They don't know. Like a lot of some like Mid-Journey, like they have a rule like, if you make money of it, you're supposed to give them money, but they can't find out. They don't know. So I think it's like, and then I like hear of studios where they got rid of their concept artists and replace it with AI platforms. But it's kind of, the question is, how can artists work with AI to create more, and because still you can, like I've seen workshops of people who are designers, and they being able to use it as ways for their concept art, but being able to navigate it to not look at the usual mid-journey dark sci-fi look to it, and being able to navigate it as a tool, which it's of course it's threatening, but it's also like when Photoshop came, or replacing painting, and or having thinking of it as a tool, and how do we move forward from here.
So it's sort of like level up again for the industry.
Yeah.
Casey, you have any? Foong, you have any input?
Casey, you go first.
I think this topic is something that can be discussed like for very, very long. I think if you think about it, those mid journeys and so on, at the end of the day, for now, I mean, till now, is actually people inputting the text, the prompt. So in a way, human involved as well. So you can also think about it as like composer and musicians who own the piece. Right? So I think it's up to how people think about it. I think everyone has preferences on that, but I wouldn't say it's threatening. Probably because maybe, like, I think all of us here, we are quite tech savvy, so we are not that worried. But maybe for some, they are sort of worried, I suppose. But I don't think, I think we all should like coexist with those things, because we can't stop them.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah, I also think that AI is not going away in that sense. Just a weird take on this, right? So I don't know, I read somewhere something like this. So people say that DALL-E produces a lot of like stock images. So ironically, they should be trained on stock images. So the company who actually sells them those stock images to retrain the stock image is actually, because if you think about it, stock images purposes is really, from a commercial standpoint, there's a lot of potential, right? But I guess for me as art, right, I think like any forms of art, as things become sort of more digitized or more commercially available and stuff like that, people will often seek for like something else. It could be something more custom or just something to feel, right? That's the purpose of art, right? Because you, I don't know, I don't know if this is related. This is something I think. So if you look at like Japan as one of the very techno-driven sort of country, right? But also they have the most interesting and like colorful subcultures and like, and stuff like that, right? So maybe that says something about like people's like preferences in art and something like that. And if AI could make art, if AI could produce a picture, yeah, maybe. But does it say anything about art? And also like, that's to be debated. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really build the cultures of it, right? It's just the pictures. Yeah. So last question. I think this one is from Filament channel. How do you guys like foreseeing this digital art that moving forward? Is it like, I mean, for our lifetime, it maybe like just like 10 years, 20 years, is just for Insta worthy, or is for gallery worthy for your artwork or for your creations? How you look at it? Because digital art is
I hope to have it more in the gallery space world. I think it's still like, I always ask people like, how do you describe what do you do in this field? Because like if you just ask a normal person, it's like, oh, what do you do? I always kind of first like take a breath. It's like, oh, I do like projections. And like, so they're like, what are you an architect? I'm like, no. It's like, like, are you graphics? I was like, no, but I have like elements of space. I have elements, and like it's still like not a real language for the general public to understand. And even like I like to do art residencies and have to kind of defend of how like digital art is art and not just not computers or something, and having that ability to kind of translate into galleries, because I think now it's like, okay, it's translating to NFTs, but there's something higher to it that I think that there's a lot of potentials to share and like be able to communicate to like with data and using that as like a way to get to communicate to people in a deeper level.
Mm-hmm. Well, how you see it?
I mean, if you ask me, I mean, I would want for my work to be the gallery, but if it can be Insta famous, why not, right? But I'm not going to be like chasing for like purposely doing work for that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand like not to. This is just a personal take on my. It's just my own practice, right? Just for me, I think it's a different game, right? It's totally different things, right? One is based on like consistency and like you know how frequent you post your content and then stuff like that, and one is very different, right? It's experiment and stuff like that, and yeah, to me both platforms it's just which suits your personality, I guess. To me, yeah. But personally, to me, if we talk about art like meaningful art, I don't think it's going anywhere. But also I think like art itself is not about the medium, right? It's more about what are you putting into it, right? Because I'm sure there's some guy that does Instagram art, but he does it in such a, you know, that's for that you just feel meaningful with it, right? Yeah. So I think like in some sense the tool is still a tool, but of course the tool itself could be dominant in some sense. It's like Instagram because of institution or something like that. Yeah. Of course that's a play as well. But I think on a personal level, it's up to you how you want to approach this journey yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess my turn. For me personally, I don't mind whether my work is Instagram worthy or whether they are in gallery. I would prefer that my work can be understood by people who experience it, understand the things that I'm trying to say, the message that I'm trying to convey, whether they're seeing it in the Instagram or gallery. I think that doesn't really matter. And uh, the thing about digital art is that in the future, whether they will be Instagram worthy or gallery worthy, I think we all don't know. It might be just both. And to be honest, I think it doesn't really matter. It should not stop you from creating. If you want your work to be just like having a lot of likes and follow, you can just go ahead. If you want to be at those renowned galleries, then you should go for that direction. You should know what sort of strategy you should go for if you really want to be a full-time artist or full-time digital artist. Yeah. But I think what is worse, not worse, I think what is unhealthy right now in digital art is that when you post up something, everyone will just say it's nice and good. It's not enough if people will just say your work is nice and good, because you won't be improving from that. You need actually very constructive feedback and critique on your works. So there are a lot of works out there, and maybe, I don't know, maybe people are being too nice. It's good to be nice, but it will be nicer if you can actually give, like if you think you have things to discuss, things to feedback, of course not just like pure hate comments on the work. Yeah. So I think that is something that on my take on that.
Yeah. I think most probably people are just taking the word art too heavy. I mean, they take it too seriously. So that's why this year we try to bring it to a public space like Fahrenheit, and we try not to like invite people to go all the way to art gallery, but we try to put it in a space that we're holding up the space, and when you walk in, it's like you've been to an art gallery, but you don't need to be so serious about you are actually looking at an art piece. Yeah. So that is the motive of this year. Anyway, thank you so much, because we are overrun by 30 minutes, so I getting a lot of complaints from my peers. So and I didn't explain why today I be the moderator, because of Shakir. If he talk, then his line will be jammed up, because he's currently in Dubai working on a show.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so it's like half an hour ago we decided that Shakir really cannot do it, because once he speak, his line will be dropped. Yeah, so to maintain this stream, so he has to stay silent. So after all, I think both a clap for Shakir, and thank you so much. And then I think we can take group photos
Thank
together.
you.
Yeah, group photos. Like, yeah, look at cameras. Just all right. Shakir, like 1, 2, 3. One more, 1, 2. All right. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
So much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night. Good morning.
Good morning to Krista. Bye. Bye.